All right, everybody, I just wanted to show you a quick video here in fixing a parasitic drain issue on my 2004 Ford Explorer. And this might not be the exact same thing that works for you if you're experiencing this problem, but it could give you a step in the right direction to go. And I'll show you what I did to fix my issue, or a workaround for my issue, essentially. If you don't know what parasitic drain is, basically, every couple days I would come out to try to start up this car. It's my spare vehicle, so I don't use it that often, but it would, after 3, 4, or 5 days, it would just be dead, turnkey, no click, no start condition, brand new battery. I've recently replaced the alternator. It's possible that it was an alternator or battery problem, but more than likely it was parasitic drain issue. And for those who want to know how to diagnose parasitic drain, I will link some videos in the description for you that it involves hooking up a multimeter in series with your here we go, in series with your battery, and one by one pulling fuses until you find one that has a lot of draw in it. And I did that. I diagnosed the problem and found out that it was under here in my fuse box. It was, get a good angle here, it was actually this fuse where this wire is now going into. It's fuse number 3, and if we look in the manual here, and this, if you have a Ford Explorer, I heard this is a very common problem. So it's fuse number 3, and fuse number 3 is actually the radio. So 3 is radio, amplifier, DVD. Now, what I did to fix the problem for the most part is I would just pull the fuse, and it would sit for weeks at a time without any problem. The problem is when I would come back and get in the vehicle, I wanted to have radio. So I would put the fuse back in, use it, and I would inevitably forget to remove the fuse again, come back out a couple days later, whole car dead, all because there was like a 5 amp draw. I don't remember, actually, was it 500 milliamp draw maybe, constantly coming from the radio. So I don't remember the exact numbers, but that's where my parasitic drain issue was. So when I unplugged it, it worked, and when I didn't, it didn't work. So I figured what I will try to do is I will try to diagnose a way to fix this. And I wanted to show you guys some cool stuff. So found out about these items right here. There's a kit I bought off of Amazon, really cheap. It has some extra fuses in it, a little fuse thing. It has some ADA fuses as well, which is what really interested me. And I thought that maybe I could utilize this ADA fuse. How this thing works is you take it and you can plug it into an existing fuse spot in your fuse box. This bottom one right here, these bottom 2 prongs will take a fuse. Let me see if I have a fuse liner. I can just throw in there like this. If I just plug this in and put in this fuse right here, I would be running that circuit just as if it was still, the fuse was plugged directly into the prongs. The next set, there's another spot for another fuse up here, and what that is to add a fuse so you can add a wire to it with another fuse and have this coming out, and this would be your hot end after everything goes through the fuse. And my radio was running off of it's just always on. It's just running directly from the battery, and that's why I had a draw. And I figured if I could add a fuse in a place that was only turned on, I had a 12-volt signal coming from the ignition, that's what I would do. So I used a multimeter. I turned this on to my 20 volts, and I went up here and started probing around and found that, that fuse, let's see if I can get a good angle here, that this fuse is always hot. This one, however, was only hot via the ignition. So see if I can get this unplugged in better angle and show you guys. All right, everybody, hopefully this is a better angle. And what I did was I reverted my fuse box back to, this is how it originally came. This is that number 3 fuse right here. And then this is where the jumper wire was going into. But basically first you got to take your grounds or your pins for your multimeter. And let me get both of them in the shot here. You got to find a place for the black one somewhere on the chassis to ground it out. And then you can just go through and touch your red prong once you got it set to volts 20 to find out where the power is coming from. Let me get this light back on. And if I can touch this one, which is the one that I was having the draw from, you'll see that it is, when I get a good grounding connection here. There we go. You can see that it's got a 12-volt signal all the time. And what I'm looking for is something that only has a 12-volt signal when it's hot, or when the ignition's on. And what I did was I just went through each one of these 20 amp fuses because I wanted to have something that was either higher than or equal to the amperage in order to add a fuse from it. And what I did was, as you can see, this one right here that I'm pointing to, and we'll go through the numbers of it in a minute. I've got no signal on this 20 amp fuse right now, but if I put my key in the ignition and turn it over a little bit into the run position, you can see that same fuse will now give me a 12 volt signal. So this is perfect to tap into, but I just got to find out what it is, because you don't want to tap into something important like the airbag or whatnot. But luckily in this is fuse number 11 in this vehicle. It's a 20 amp fuse, and it's actually for heated seats, which my vehicle doesn't even have. So in theory, I could just probably reroute this, but as of now, you know, what we're going to do is we need to tap into that to utilize it. And I'm going to use the add a fuse so it stays functioning just in case it does run something else I didn't realize. Now, there's more things you have to do though. So let me go pull out this first fuse. And what we got to do is I just pulled out the radio fuse. So radio fuse has been pulled, and that's normally what I was trying to do, as long as I can remember to pull that when I got out of the vehicle. I have to find out which side of this is hot and which side is not. So basically I can just shove this into one side. I'm getting no signal on this, you know, driver side of the fuse, but the passenger side of the fuse, notice it's 12 volts. So that's where my hot signal is coming from. So what I need to do is do the same thing for this other fuse here. I need to reroute that extra wire to this side, the side that did not have the initial 12 volt signal, because I want it to trigger from the ignition and complete the circuit over here and ignore that constantly on 12 volt source right here. So if I do the exact same thing and pull from this fuse, we got to find out the direction of this one as well to know how to load this thing up properly. So this one is actually the opposite. So the ignition, because my ignition is still on right now, my ignition source is coming from the driver side of this, and I actually need it to branch from the, and it completes the circuit going toward the passenger side, which is the opposite of this fuse, which I find kind of interesting. But we can still work with that as long as we know what we're dealing with. So basically I will take this, and I have to take this pigtail end that's coming out here needs to go toward where the circuit needs to be completed at. So this is basically where the source is coming from this side, and this is the completed side of this. Notice I put two 20 amp fuses in here. You have to have your add a fuse has to be the same or a lower amperage than the other one, because if I add a 30 amp fuse on a 20 amp circuit, I'm going to blow the 20 amp fuse if that thing coming off of my add a fuse is drawing more than 20 amps. It's going to blow out of that 20 amp fuse. So you don't want to do that. But either way, so I need to orient this so that this is going in from my hot side already, which is on this one we decided was the passenger side, correct? Let me retest this. Yep, that is where I'm always hot from. So that needs to be my hot side. And I need to put this so it will be oriented like this in that add a fuse spot. So there we go. I have added that fuse into there. So now my heated seats, if I had them, would still function properly. What I do with the other end of this is I actually put a crimp connector on it, and I had to cut it in half because I need something. There's probably products that you can purchase that will allow this thing to fit into a fuse bay, but I need to only trigger 1/2 of this circuit. So as I, turn the ignition back off before I start messing with this, I'm going to try to shove this up. There we go. So basically what I now have is the circuit from the heated seats, which is an ignition switch as opposed to always on. It's just based on the ignition. If the ignition's turned on, will now route the power over and complete the circuit for the radio. So what I basically have, hold on, switching camera positions for you. Okay, there we go. So now what I basically have is a radio that is not on at all, does not draw any power until I put keys into the ignition, turn it to the run position. I don't know if you can see it because of the light, but you can see that there's like some light on the radio now, and I can turn my radio on and joyously listen to my radio without having to forget, because now if I turn it off, the radio is not only just powered down, but it doesn't even have a signal to it anymore. Now, the thing that sucks about that is I have to reprogram my stations every time I turn off and on the vehicle. It amazingly keeps my Bluetooth settings, which is kind of cool for this little, cheap aftermarket radio. But basically, I fixed this a couple weeks ago. I let the car sit for about a week and a half, fired right up yesterday. Figured I'd make a video and show you guys in case you guys are experiencing any parasitic draw issues on another vehicle, or especially on a 2004 Ford Explorer, because what I'm told is parasitic draw coming from fuse number 3 is very, very common, because I guess it's the amplifier. Something happens to the amplifier, and the amplifier screws up is what I've been told. But either way, hope this helped you guys out. I plan on doing more fix-it type videos in the future on the series. I actually have on this channel, I actually have a series I'm going to be coming up with soon. It's going to be going through and fixing something that I just bought off of Craigslist from somebody local. So hopefully you guys will enjoy that. But let me know this helped. Thumbs up, and let me know if you'd like to see more videos like this in the future. I've been doing this, is basically turned into my project car because it is my spare vehicle that is not worth enough to sell. I think I saw one yesterday go at auction, this exact year and model and everything. It went at auction for $700 running, so it's not worth enough. It just turned into my project car to play with, experiment with, and see what I can get done. So, all right guys, thanks for watching. See you next time.